Greetings, our viewers. Today we are so excited to be bringing you Streetwise Economics podcast with my lovely and wonderful, your trusted money coach, Blooming Umorin. Welcome, coach.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here again.
Fantastic. And as usual, today we have quite a lot of things that we have, to discuss about, the state of the market. So we will go live into what's happening in the US stock markets to just show you what's really happening and what we think about where the market is headed and what are the underlying things that might really move the market. And we will talk about, some of the earnings that were released this year, particularly Tesla, Apple, and give our take on that as well, and also talk about the economic data that was released in the US this year, because over the years I've realized that, these economic indicators like GDP, even core PCE, they can move the market. So when that volatility is created, that might be an opportunity to make money. For some people, they can lose money because they can panic. Now, we also will talk about the DeepStick saga. We also talk about the crypto market, what's really going on, and we will be also sharing some insights from other analysts and experts so that we can make this more insightful. Now, Coach, I think the first thing that we always want to say is that this conversation is for educational purposes only. These are two friends who like to talk about the stock market, and we also invest our own money. So, it's something that we do. We are practitioners in this regard. But before we get started, Coach, do you want to give a brief background of who, Blooming Umorin, Coach Blooming Umorin is?
Okay, so just in a nutshell, Blooming Umorin, most people call me Blooming, my trusted money coach. Started investing in the stock and crypto market in 2020.
Yes.
And ever since then, I've been a student of the market. And prior to that, I've been studying about investing, but it was literally in 2020 that I
Yes.
started investing. And since then, I've watched our portfolio just grow. And I've been learning, learning, making mistakes and learning.
Yes.
But investing has been one of the major game changers, not just for me, but also for my family, because understanding the dynamics
Yes.
of the market, the capital market, how can I just read what's going on in the news and translate that into the type of stock or crypto that I want to buy? Again, I've just taking some time to just study the market, and I feel like this is just a space that everybody to participate in. I'm not saying that you need to coach about money. No, you
Yes.
don't. But you need to at least have some allocation into stocks, into crypto, because I truly believe that these are vehicles that can truly change our lives. So that's just blooming in a nutshell.
That's wonderful. And Blooming and I, our friendship dates back many years. From 2014, we met at the University of British Columbia. We were Mastercard Foundation scholars. Blooming was doing a Master of Business Administration at the Sauder Business School. It's one of the top
Hmm.
business schools in the world, to my knowledge. And I was also doing my master's degree in food and resource economics as a Mastercard scholar. And I went on to do another master's Master of Arts in Resource Environment and Sustainability. But I think for me, the realization, like I've said on this channel, is that I realized that there had to be a way for me to grow my wealth. And when I went
Yes.
to the bank, the options that they were giving me, they were great. And banks are great. I don't want to give this impression that they have a place in my financial situation. I invest with banks, but I also deposit my money. And in Canada, we have a pretty solid, a well-regulated financial sector. But because I wanted more, in terms of the return on my capital or my income, and
Hmm.
even also to generate extra income. That's when I also started learning about trading, about investing. But I made plenty of mistakes at the beginning. And one of those mistakes was that I thought it was very easy to make money. I assumed that because I'm an economist, I'm gonna, buy this stock, it's gonna go to the moon. But the reality is that it's extremely difficult to beat the market. But now I have some strategies that I use that I've been back testing. And if you want to talk more about that, you can feel free to reach out to me or Coach Blooming. Now, let's jump in to the state of the market, what's really going on now. So this is what is happening currently in the market. And let me just go on the minute by minute. And I usually like to take the S&P 500, which is the 500 companies, capitalized companies in the US. And sometimes they can be 502. The last time I checked 503 because there are some companies that have dual listing of shares. Let's say Google Class A and Class B shares. We also have Berkshire Hathaway Class A and Class B shares. But broadly, these are the top 500 companies, and they are used mostly as a barometer of what's really happening in the US capital markets. But of course, the stock market is not the entire economy, right? But it's kind of like a lot of people who have money, the rich people, they mostly put their money in the stock market. So if the stock market is doing well, even President Trump, from what I've seen, he likes to judge partly his success or failure relative to how the stock market is performing. So it is a very important indicator. And then, of course, there are other GDP and all this. Now, we can see that this week, this market has been on a roller coaster. But today, you can see it's almost green, or most of the indices. You can see here, this is NVIDIA is actually up. Tesla is up. You can see Tesla is up 419, let's say 4.71%. S&P 500 is up 0.66%, which is fantastic. And the Dow Jones is barely green, but it's green. But, the NASDAQ is 1.35%. The NASDAQ is quite a bit more volatility compared to the S&P 500, because these tech stocks, you see, as we will talk more about the DeepStick, when they were hit hard, especially NVIDIA, when it dropped about 17%, the
In
NASDAQ
just one
really,
day.
yes, in just one day, it took a big hit. And I think 589 billion was wiped out of,
Yeah.
of the market from NVIDIA alone. So it can really move the market. Now, the gold relative to the US, you can see that here the gold is appreciated, right? It's 0.41% right now. And also the currencies, you can see that the euro has appreciated 0.19% relative to the US dollar. And of course, the Bitcoin is volatile, but right now it's trading at minus 0.19% today. Ethereum is up almost 3.97%. And NVIDIA, like I said, is back to 125. But yesterday it was about 118. So the issue here is, now I want to just show you what happened this week on the S&P 500. You can see here that this is the S&P 500. We opened the week, it was at this point, but then you can see that it opened the week at this level. That means it dropped, right? And I think that was the issue when the NVIDIA saga happened. NVIDIA really dragged the S&P 500 down. Now, you can see that it kind of like wobbled around this zone, but then it went up, right? And down. But now it's actually trading up. So this is the story of the market. Coach, do you want to comment on why you think the market has been dropping up and down and behaving in this way?
This week has been a week of just being a student of the market and just understanding that the market can be so irrational in the
Yes,
short term. On Monday, the market went wild, literally,
yes,
because of DeepSeek. What is DeepSeek? This is just the Chinese version of an AI LLM.
yes,
Just seeing how the market reacted violently, and NVIDIA losing almost 600 billion in just a single day.
Yes.
Again, when I see things like this, it just tells me that people panic
Yes.
when we just have information without digesting it. And for
Yes.
people that were just buying on Monday, I think even Tesla was down on the same day. Tech companies were just down on Monday, Tuesday.
Yes.
But just 3 days later, we're all saying that all of this is in the green again, including NVIDIA. So what am I just saying? I always say that time in the market beats time in the market.
Yes.
Is it natural for investors or traders to panic because of the news that came out from China? Yes, it's possible. But I always like to remember or just to remind people that, hey, investing is literally 90% on how well you can control your emotions and just 10%
Psychology.
numbers. Yeah. And I think Morgan Housel said this to the psychology of money. A lot of people, they just want to win just over a short period of time. They want to
Yes.
put maybe $10,000 into the market today, and tomorrow it has doubled. But if you look at this historically, the more you just stay in the market, the better you just give your investment opportunity to grow over time. And anytime the market gives us those violent red days, and if you have cash, just buy. It's just a no-brainer. So that's just my take on that. Whether it's NVIDIA or Tesla or Microsoft or Apple or stock that you're interested in, provided it's a fundamentally strong company, and
Yes. Yes.
anytime the market gives me a buying opportunity, I just buy. I don't even overthink it because why?
Yeah.
I just know that the market is very irrational in the short term. So that's my take on whatever happened in the market this week.
Mhm.
So yeah, over to you,
Yes.
coach.
And I think it was Ben Graham who wrote The Intelligent Investor.
Right.
And one of the key takeaway from that book is that, Mr. Market is moody. Sometimes, maybe irrationally, like overexcited and
Yeah.
moody. So when the market is moody, and provided these are fundamentally strong companies, and for me, when it comes to individual companies, I do a deep dive, try to understand a lot of nuances, the fundamentals, no debt, and all these other things that we have discussed on this channel. And I want to get in when there's a margin of safety and
Hmm.
stay invested. And because as the company grows and the capital gains usually follows through in most cases. Now, coach, what do you see as the potential impact of DeepStick? Because I think there's a possibility that they might be coming up with other versions that might undercut, the AI
Hmm.
competition. But from me, if you were to ask me, what I can see is that what DeepSeek shown was that if the information they shared is true, if they could take only just 15 million to replicate that model, right? It means that how will these big tech companies justify the billions that they are investing in AI to produce their AI models? I think for me, that's where I'm kind of like nervous to say, look, will the price readjust to those levels to price in that? Or maybe because the DeepSeek startup, what they did, they clearly said that this does not include the research and other costs. This was just the cost of,
Training.
developing,
Yes.
of the model, excluding other research and development costs.
Right. So for me personally, I take any news that comes out of China with a grain of salt. Why?
Mhm.
China has the ability to copy smartly, meaning that you look at what is happening and you copy what the Americans are doing. Okay? The news that came out for DeepSeek on Monday, to me, the way that I interpreted this was that we're going into an era of just AI growth.
Yes,
And a lot of companies are going to participate in this. And if there are models that are cheaper that can be replicated, it just means to me that the demand is going to surge. That's the way that I'm seeing this. It doesn't mean that NVIDIA is going to be the only player.
yes,
NVIDIA is the major player right now.
yes,
But I don't see AI stopping anytime soon.
yes,
Because why? This is a new frontier. It's still early. And if I
Mhm.
know that this is still early and who are the people that are positioned to play in this, NVIDIA to me is still number one. But
Yeah.
we should not forget that there's a difference between the infrastructure itself and
Yes.
what you build on the infrastructure. A
Yes.
typical example, we can see Intel. Intel is one, but what are the other companies that took what Intel created and built upon what they created? For example, Amazon. People that are able to interpret and build applications that has a bigger total addressable market, it's
Yeah.
way much better. That's where we see Palantir, meaning that at some point in time, whether it's LLM, it's going to be a commodity. Anybody can create it some
Yes.
point in time, but it's what you do
With
with
that.
that that is the game changer. It's not really, oh, we're just building this LLM because anybody can copy what of OpenAI, what of Perplexity, what of Anthropic, right? They are doing almost the same thing. But what do you do with those infrastructure? What do you do with those systems? That is
Mhm.
a bigger term, in my own opinion. And
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that NVIDIA's game is over. No.
Yes.
But it just means to me that a lot of more companies are going to play in this. And again, the US has to double up and just buckle up because China is not sleeping. That's just it. They're not sleeping. So
Yeah.
that's my take on that.
Yeah,
And
that's interesting,
yeah,
coach. And I think for me, it just also means there's gonna be more competition. But for me,
yes,
my concern has been that the current valuations for NVIDIA, like, are they justified? Because I think the market at current levels, they had been pricing in because it went to over, I think, $153 a share.
yes.
And I'm not sure about the exact current earnings, forward earnings, because the market is assuming that NVIDIA is going to continue beating earnings, it's going to continue to grow at this rate. Now, when things like this come into play, that's when there are risk factors, right? Because if now they can justify that even the cost that NVIDIA and other, companies are building the infrastructure is too much, then the market has to reprice. That's just me, but still, NVIDIA, I think they have over 80% of the market share. They have insane free cash flows. They have, lower debt to their free cash flows. And whichever way that I look at NVIDIA, it's solid and there's been surging demand for their chips. Now, I think if you don't have any other comment, maybe we can move
I
on.
like to add
Yeah. Yes.
just a little bit of context to
Mhm.
this too. So for NVIDIA, again, they're still the major player, and I don't think that the capex into AI infrastructure is gonna
Yes.
slow. Why?
Yes.
During Meta's earnings call this week, we saw that Zuckerberg was still saying that, hey, we're gonna invest 60 to 65 billion dollars into
Mm.
this. The same thing for Microsoft, 80 billion. And I'm sure that, I mean, last week we were talking about Stargate, that, okay, about 500 billion is going to be invested
Yes.
into this AI infrastructure. Again, this, I truly believe that it's not stopping, it's not slowing down. It
Yes.
just means that more companies are going to need these services. To
Yes.
me, even when DeepSeek had the whole saga, I felt like the moat for open AI was even more in question, not even
Yes.
for NVIDIA.
Yes.
Because I'm like, okay, this should not typically affect NVIDIA. It should be affecting OpenAI. But what do I know? So again, I just feel like a lot of American companies or just US companies are still heavily investing into AI infrastructure. And where will they get those DPUs? It's going to be from
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA. So
Yeah.
and even the DeepSeek, they still took DPUs from NVIDIA. So I'm just
Yes.
like, so where else are you going to get this GPUs from, if not from NVIDIA? So all I'm just saying is that, hey, NVIDIA's
Yeah.
story is not yet over,
Yes.
and there's still a
Yeah.
lot of runway. So that's just my closing thought
I
on this
I
particular
totally
topic.
agree. And each time that I see Meta, Microsoft, and these
Yes.
big tech companies saying, okay, we are going to invest in AI, where are they going to buy most of their infrastructure?
Yep.
Is that means it's gonna be most likely demand for NVIDIA. So the
Yep.
business is going to keep on growing. Now, let's talk a little bit more, Coach, about the earnings some of the earnings that came out this week. We're going to talk about the earnings, Apple and Tesla.
Buddy, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Right. So on my screen here, you can see here, these are a snapshot of Apple's earnings. You can see that here, Apple, it's one of the big tech companies that can really move the markets, right? So you can see that their revenue here, they did beat their forecasted, right? Because they had 124.3 billion, which was a good thing. But now the iPhone revenue, it disappointed, but the good thing was that in other segment, you can see here the iPad revenue, it was more than what was forecasted. And the China, even though the China revenue, it kind of like stalled. Overall, I think, Apple is still doing a fantastic job. And even though they are not heavily invested in AI, but what do you think about this earnings, Coach?
Yeah. I think you can stop sharing.
Sure.
So my take on Apple, so Apple reported, was it yesterday? Right?
Yesterday,
And
yeah,
yes, yesterday, and I think China sales went down about 11%,
yes,
but the overall revenue was still at least, I mean, it was a little bit of a miss, but I
yes,
think in the grand scheme of things, number one, to be critical, Apple has not been a major player in AI,
yes,
which again, I was expecting that since Apple has a lot of exposure into, the consumers, they have more
and they
leadway
have
into that.
cash.
And they have a lot of money just sitting on the balance sheet. So, but in the grand scheme of things, I think Apple has a lot of money. And even if their stock doesn't grow as maybe Facebook or Meta or Google or any of these other major tech companies, I don't think they're going to I don't think they're going anywhere anytime
Yes,
soon. What do I
yes,
mean? Because a lot of institutions, a lot of companies just buy Apple, right? It's
yes,
just a no-brainer. It's just one of the top American companies. So I don't like to judge the performance of a company by just a quarter. I
yes.
just look at it in the big picture. Are people still going to be using the iPhone? Yes. Are
I
people still
use
going to be
iPhone.
buying the
I'm
Mac?
using a MacBook.
Yes. Yes. So it's just one of those products that we've integrated into our lives. And I'm sure that eventually they're going to get this AI thing figured out. Even if they don't get it figured out, they're going to partner with another institution that can make that happen. But the most interesting thing for me for AI, for Apple, will be the applications that will be built on it. Because
Mhm.
why? We have access to the phone 24/7, literally. The first
Yes,
thing when you wake up, you're like, oh, let me check my phone. Even though
yes,
you'll be like, no, I'm not supposed to do that.
yes,
So at some point in time, there are so many applications that will still be built on Apple. So again,
yes.
I wouldn't discount Apple now, even though it's been a laggard.
Yeah,
But in the grand scheme of things, I think there's still
yeah.
hope. Yeah, let me
Yeah,
just put it
and they
that way.
did share buybacks, and also they
Yes,
said even though they have their Apple intelligence software, it's not available in other countries,
locations,
parts of the
yes.
world. So as more and more of that application gets available in other parts of the world, I see, possibly, rising revenues. But at these
Mhm.
current valuation levels, I'm not buying any of these shares. Okay, now let's move on to your favorite, Tesla. You are a Tesla boo. Are you still a Tesla boo?
I'm always going to be an Elon fan girl. Let me just put it that way, not just Tesla alone.
Okay, let's see what they did in terms of the earnings. So on the screen, you can see these were, like the numbers for Tesla. You can see here that they did miss. It was a miss, actually.
Yeah.
They had a actual revenue of 25.71 billion. These are billions. This is a lot of money. And then versus the 27.26, that's a big miss there. And even though they did, it shows that their revenue, it just increased by 2%, right, from the previous year. But the automotive revenue, as you can see, it fell by 8%, and their profit margins is also declining. What's your comment on that? And do you have any comment on that? For me, I would say my first instinct is that I think it's expected that their profit margins would fall as there's more competition, and they're also reducing prices. But still, I think Tesla still has very good fundamentals, even though I believe at this current level, it's a little bit of a stretch in terms of their valuation.
Mhm.
Over to you,
So,
Coach.
yeah, so on Wednesday, Tesla reported, and the way that, okay, so
Mhm.
Tesla reported this week on, I think on Wednesday, and yes, it was a miss on EPS, but I tried to look at the overall big picture. A lot of people or a lot of analysts judge Tesla as an automotive company.
Mhm.
And I like to use the analogy of judging Amazon as a bookstore.
Yes.
Again, the beginning part of Tesla was just, oh, we're creating these electric vehicles. But anyone that listens to the earnings call will know that a lot of amazing things are just unfolding. Number one, full self-driving,
Epic things
unsupervised, is going to start Austin,
in
June
Texas.
2025, which is literally 5 months away. This is game changer to me because this is the
Mhm.
world we're going into, meaning that we don't need to keep driving. This car is going to be smart enough to
Gonna be
drive
an
us.
asset.
Yes. And even apart from that, the fact that this particular car can just, I don't even like to call it a car, it's just computer on wheels. The fact
Mhm.
that this thing can go out, generate another source of income for you without you being tied to this car,
Mhm.
again, it's a game changer. I know they're just starting in hosting and we don't, I mean, they're just dipping their toes into the water to see if everything goes on well. But my own personal take is that this is going to be amazing. But even if we leave the FSD and the full self-driving and all of that, the bigger
Mhm.
picture is even the Optimus robot, meaning that the things that we humans we don't like to do, this robot can do it. Just few days ago, I was looking at the garbage man that came to pick up the garbage, and I just thought that, hey, in the nearest future, maybe this is just gonna be Optimus just doing this. We don't need
Yes.
a human to be picking up garbage from one house to the other.
Yeah.
That is going to be endless possibilities. So for people that are investing in Tesla, invest in Tesla because of what Tesla is going to do in the next 6 months or 1 year or 2 years. My investing horizon, 5, 10, 15,
Mhm.
20 years. Because by the time we start getting into the number for Optimus, and I remember Elon saying that, hey, this is at least about $10 trillion annually.
Mhm.
That's insane. Like, that is just insane because you're
Mhm.
creating a product that has so many applications. And it's just mind-boggling the moment you start going into the numbers. But yes, did they miss on the automotive gross margin? Yes. But that is not the big picture for Tesla. That is just the smallest part of just Tesla. But in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, I just believe that Tesla is not just a car company. This is just a robot, artificial intelligence company, and Tesla is literally the biggest company that has real AI world applications. So again, whether Tesla missed or not, I
Yeah.
think in the grand scheme of things, the fact that we're going to be having unsupervised full self-driving in Houston, June 2025, and later part of 2025 in California, and he said in 2026, the other part of North America. That to me
Yeah,
is
it's exciting. Yeah.
exciting. Even if they miss a couple of quarters, again, I like to stretch it out and just see that, okay, what is the story behind this? And I'm just very optimistic about the Tesla story. So that's my take on Tesla for the Q4 2024 earnings.
So that's interesting. So for me, the other thing that I wanted to ask you, you're a Tesla girl, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you also worry about Elon Musk's involvement in the far right politics and stuff as the CEO? I think maybe as long as you can separate that, but it's hard to separate that in my view, right?
So, so for me, anytime I invest in a company, I like to study the leader.
Hmm.
The moment you understand the leadership, a lot of things that a lot of people will pay attention to, because you've taken the time to study the type of leader that this person is, you will understand how the person operates. A person can create reusable rockets.
Yeah,
This person started
no doubt
creating
he's talented.
electric vehicles when it was not popular. And it was like, I'm going to create electric vehicles. And now we're talking about full self-driving. And now this person took over Twitter or X and slashed by 80%, and X is still functioning.
Hmm.
This guy has a history of making things happen. He has a history of making the impossible happen. So anytime it doesn't mean that he won't maybe make some mistake. He's going to, because he's human. But
Hmm.
when I see a leader that has a good track record of execution, meaning that anytime you take on a project, you do it to the best of your abilities, and we can just see the result. Again, I don't care if it's is left or right or center. To me, if you get the job done, you make the world better. You clean up the government to the best of your ability. Because what if you look at the US debt, like trillions, how
Yeah, it's
sustainable
crazy.
is that?
Yeah,
The,
and I
like,
saw,
yeah,
yeah, I
it's
saw
not
he was
sustainable
saying to get to a trillion, I think they should be about 1 billion, I think, to be cut every day
every day.
for the whole year.
Yeah, so
So,
like
okay, so may I
it's
just,
just
so now, so we will see how things will unfold. But now let's just talk a little bit more about the economic data. Today, the core PCE data, it dropped, right? But it was as forecasted, I think 2.8. And what this means, people are anticipating that the Fed, they are just going, they were waiting for this data. Now, we will see how this data evolves, but the GDP, it was lower than expected, but still fundamentally, when I look at the US economy, there were more people who were hired. That means there were less job numbers in terms of the unemployment numbers that were reported. So the US economy is very solid. Now, there's a wild card, as I like to put it. If President Trump levies tariffs on Mexico and Canada, the 25%, and also maybe 10% or so to China. What do you see, Coach? What are your comments on that?
So I think based on what I'm reading, my understanding is that this is going to go into effect February 1st.
Hmm.
And honestly, nobody knows how long this is going to be for or what the implication of this. But in general, when a tariff is levied on another country, we're
Hmm.
expecting that the goods that we ship to the US is going to be more expensive for people that are buying over there.
Yes.
No, so, and if the price of things keep going up that way, that could have some inflationary effects.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we would like to consider, because we're literally just coming out from, I mean,
A
2020,
cycle, yeah,
2021, and
inflationary
a lot of
cycle.
printing money, and now we're still dealing with the effect of that. Now, when you then levy something else on top, or when you layer tariffs on top of that, gain the economic consequences of that, it just means that more people that are supposed to enjoy this benefit, things are going to be more expensive for that. Again,
Hmm.
will that negatively affect Canada? It might. Yeah, it's possible, because when things are more expensive, it just means a lot of people will not buy the same good. So
Yeah.
again, we can't really tell the whole big picture of the implication of this, but I just hope that this is just for bargaining or for negotiation tactics.
Politics.
Yeah, but even if that is levied, we honestly don't know how long this is going to be for. And even I think when we had the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, and one of the reporters asked Jerome Powell the same question, We really don't know the impact of this, the impact of
Yes.
tariff. So again, there's a lot
The
of,
full,
yeah, the
impact.
full impact. So again, we just have to wait and see. But if the US goes into this US tariff trade wars, I'm sure that Canada too is going to retaliate. But again, that is not something we want to do for the long term because we're neighbors, right? So that's just my take on that for just in a snapshot. So yeah,
Yeah.
over to you.
Yeah, okay. I think that's interesting. I think more people will lose jobs, but I think
Yeah.
these are hypothetical. So we will see. Now, Coach, you are big on crypto, right? I
Mm.
want you to share more insights on crypto, and I know you have slides. So I'm gonna let you share that so that we can share with our viewers.
So what happened in crypto this week? A lot of exciting news happened in crypto this week. And one of the major things that I want to start off is that number one, the SEC grants initial approval for Bitwise to have a Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF. So this is a fund that tracks both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And this is based on the market cap of both crypto. Based on what I read so far, I think Bitcoin has about 83% allocation in the fund and also
Mhm.
Ethereum about 17%. But again, this is based on the market cap of these cryptocurrencies. One of the beautiful things about this is that it allows investors to have exposure to not just Bitcoin alone, but to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Again, this is just initial approval, meaning that we still need a final approval in form of the Form S1. We still
Mhm.
needs to be approved by the SEC before this then begins to trade. But overall, I don't think this should be an issue because we already have the Bitcoin ETF and also the Ethereum ETF. So combining both, I don't think this should be an issue. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Interesting.
Yeah, the other thing that I think we talked about this the last time that we had this whole conversation was that
Yeah.
SEC repeats the SAB 121. What is SAB 121? This is just staff accounting bulletin, which again prevents banks from custodying crypto. But now,
Hmm.
if the SEC is repealing this, it just means that the restriction,
Yeah.
institutions or financial institutions that could not get into crypto or could not offer crypto services to their client, now they're going to get the green light to be able to offer this. What does this
Hmm.
mean? It just means that banks can now custody crypto, banks can now offer crypto services, and this is going to increase adoption, meaning that not just the retail investors alone, but also institutional adoption. So
Hmm.
this is a very, very bullish sign. One of the other people that is synonymous with crypto is Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor, he keeps buying Bitcoin. Nothing
Wow.
against it. It's just like he's literally, MicroStrategy has literally positioned itself as the largest corporate holder for Bitcoin. Just this week alone, they bought another $1.1 billion worth of Bitcoin. And if
Billion with a B.
with a B. So if we look at this, it is just really, really amazing. The reason why I'm even saying that this is even amazing, if we look at the 5-year performance for the MicroStrategy stock, just over the past 5 years, because I think 2020, the
Yes.
price of one share of MicroStrategy was about $15. And
Yes.
fast forward 5 years later, this is over $340. And why did this happen? Because MicroStrategy pivoted into Bitcoin, meaning that they started holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. While I'm not recommending MicroStrategy, I do own some shares of MicroStrategy in full disclosure.
Disclaimer.
But yeah, but I'm just saying that a lot of institutions are adopting this, meaning that it's no longer strange for companies to have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Just this week,
I wanted to comment, Coach. So for
yes,
me, I find it very interesting, but I do wanna say, Bitcoin is very volatile. You really have to be able to stomach this. And one way to go about it, have an emergent fund, never invest in volatile securities like this, money that you're not willing to lose. So, Coach, please proceed. I just wanted to put that caveat. You have a very high risk appetite, but at the same time, I wanted to just caution people to say
yes,
it comes with ups and leaps and bounds. From my
yes.
experience, it's very volatile, Bitcoin.
So, so again, I know that I have a high risk for tolerance when it comes to taking risks about investing, but it's also important to look at the historical record for
Yes.
Bitcoin. Just last year, Bitcoin was still around $44,000.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at over $100,000 as a normal threshold. We don't
Yes.
know where this is going to end at the end of 2025. Some are estimating that one Bitcoin might be worth maybe 180,000 or 200,000. Who knows? But I just
Yes.
try to look at the historical record that Bitcoin has already established over a long period of time since 2009. And MicroStrategy getting into this. This is not a guarantee that, oh, your investment is going to do well, but I'm just painting a picture that, hey, this is just a story of an institution that pivoted
Mm-hmm.
into Bitcoin, and we can see how their stock has already performed over the past 5 years. Again,
Yes.
never invest what you cannot afford to lose because, yes, crypto can be very volatile, but even with the volatility, we can see that Bitcoin is going in the upward right, which is where we want this to go. Just this week, Forbes names Michael Saylor as Bill as Bitcoin alchemist because this guy is so bold. And when we have leaders that can take risks like that, it's just important to recognize that. I'm not saying that this is a perfect move because why? What if Bitcoin start tanking? The story is not going to be, oh, you're going to be on the front page of
Yes.
Forbes. The story is going to change. But I'm just saying that the fact that he has taken the risk and taken the fourth step to literally putting Bitcoin on
Yes.
MicroStrategy's balance sheet, this is
Yes.
also giving or leading the way for other companies to put Bitcoin on their own balance sheet. One of the other things that we saw, I think Tesla too has a
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin on their own balance sheet. So I know that we
Wow.
talked about this earlier that Tesla this quarter 2024 they missed on earnings and things like that. But one of the other things that we need to point out was that their Bitcoin investment is already up over 300%. This last quarter, unrealized gain on Bitcoin was $600 million. Just this past Q4. And apart from that, 26% of the Q4 earnings was just on Q was just from Bitcoin. Again, this is
Wow.
just giving us an example that Bitcoin works not just for a retail investor, but also for companies, for corporations. Again, I'm not discounting the fact that Bitcoin can be volatile. Yes, it can, but we're seeing examples, MicroStrategy,
A
Tesla.
shift.
Exactly, there is a shift because number one, the US administration is pro Bitcoin, is pro crypto. So there is a shift towards Bitcoin, and it's just important to have some allocations into Bitcoin. I'm not saying just crypto in general.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is just important to have some allocations into Bitcoin. One of the other things that we know, BlackRock, again, they have the BlackRock ETF. Demand has been going up. Just this week alone, BlackRock bought another over 3,000 Bitcoin. And it's important to know that every day, the maximum amount of Bitcoin that is usually mined only 450 Bitcoin. So when you see a corporation that is even buying more than what is mined every
They can
day,
move the
it's
market.
because number one, yes, they can move the market, but also because they believe in this product. They can sell this product to the institutional investors. They can sell this to big corporations. Again, I always like to look at the economics for Bitcoin. Fixed supply and demand is increasing. I want to believe that the price is going to trend upward. So before we then go into the next slide, I'm going to play a short video where Larry Fink. So Larry Fink used to be Bitcoin skeptic, but once he became a student of Bitcoin, he studied the white papers, and all of a sudden is now an advocate. So I'm just going to play this short clip so that you can hear.
If you're frightened
Yes.
of your debasement of your currency or you're frightened of your economic or political stability of your country, you could have an internationally based instrument called Bitcoin that will overcome those local fears. And so I'm a big believer in the utilization of that as an instrument. And so if that becomes true and you see that it is it could be a proper hedge against maybe hope security or equities. Yeah. The question is, could you see a 2 or 5% allocation? I was with a sovereign wealth fund during this week, and that was the conversation. Should we have a 2% allocation? Should we have a 5% allocation? If everybody adopted that conversation, but it would be 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 per Bitcoin.
But does it also?
I'm not promoting it, by the way. So that is not my promotion. Or
Larry is literally putting a disclaimer. I'm promoting Bitcoin. Just saying, if 2% or 5% from sovereign wealth fund is just been allocated to this, or retail investors or corporations start allocating part of their treasuries into this.
Interesting. And I wanted to comment though.
Yes, it
So I
has the
told you,
potential to change.
yes, I think even I saw something on X, the Norwegian sovereign fund, they actually bought, I think, a couple of hundreds of millions of dollars of
Of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. So
Yep,
these are the things that can move the market. Now think of
exactly.
billions getting into this space, because price action is mostly a function of, demand and supply. If there
Yep,
is more demand, they are buying more, and these are making very big moves against a fixed supply of Bitcoin. Then the price is
the
most
price
likely
would,
going to go up, all things
yep,
constant. So
yep.
this makes sense.
Yeah, so again, the fact that Larry Fink used to be a skeptic, in the moment he started studying
Yeah.
Bitcoin, could see that this is a game changer. I think Tatu would have been saying that this is going to reach $1 million. She's been saying this since 2015, 2016, and saying
Mhm.
that other big money managers are coming to that realization. Again, I'm going to really emphasize that it's important to allocate some of our wealth into Bitcoin.
Our
One of the,
role.
so,
if you're
okay,
frightened,
so but before I then go into what the Fed said this week,
Mhm.
again, we're seeing more adoption. So let's hear from
Our
Jerome
role
Powell.
with Bitcoin really is to look at, with crypto, really is to look at the banks, and we think it's, banks are perfectly able to serve crypto customers as long as they understand and can manage the risks, and it's safe and sound. As a good number of our banks that we regulate and supervise do that. The threshold has been a little higher for banks engaging in.
So again, the fact that the Fed chair is even having this conversation, but remember, I said in the previous slide that the SEC repeals the SAB 121, which prevent banks from custodying crypto. And now we're
Mhm.
having this conversation that, hey, banks are perfectly okay to serve the customers provided they know the risks attached to this. Again, this is a big danger because not just the retail investors are into Bitcoin and crypto in general, but institutional adoption and even governments are getting into crypto, or let me just say into Bitcoin. So, as exciting as this is, I also want to tell you that even Jim Cramer is excited about crypto. I don't know if this is a good thing, but Kramer has, anytime he says buy the stock or buy this crypto, there's an inverse relationship. But let's hear from Kramer. Before we even go there,
role.
sorry, before we go into Kramer. So this week again, ECB President Christine Lagarde said this or just a few days ago that it's unlikely for the ECB to have a Bitcoin reserve. Okay,
Yes.
because she said that Bitcoin is not liquid, it's not secure, it's not safe. Again, when people say this or when somebody just says this, if they just take the time to study the white paper, you're going to see how powerful this thing is. What does it
Yeah.
mean that this is not liquid? I can easily sell my Bitcoin. I'm not saying I'm going to sell my Bitcoin, no. But what do you mean by it's not secure, it's not safe? It is secure. It's been operating since 2009 and there's never been any breach when it comes to Bitcoin. So it's very, very important to understand that, yes, we understand that these people control a lot of nations, but the moment you study Bitcoin, this is a game changer. Fixed supply, the demand is going up. The price is generally going to go upward. So now let's hear from Kramer.
MicroStrategy, okay, look, I say if you want to own Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. You should own Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a great thing to have in your portfolio. But
Oh my God. I mean, I can listen to this over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, so Kramer is saying, I own Bitcoin. You should own Bitcoin. This is a great asset to own. But also, I'm also going to put the disclaimer out there that anytime Kramer says buy this thing, there is an inverse relationship. But I'm not saying that you should not buy Bitcoin. I own some Bitcoin too. So again, but
Yes.
that's just all that happened in crypto this week. Can you please pause?
Yes, that's so that was a lot of developments in this week, and thank you so much for putting this together. And I hope our viewers will enjoy this. And if you haven't subscribed, please make sure you do so that
Yeah.
you can get these quality conversations in the future. Now, Coach, before we conclude, I wanted to kind of like give you an opportunity to tell us where you see the market going this coming week.
Mm-hmm. So before I jump into where I see the market going this week, as I always say on every episode, it's important to have some allocation into Bitcoin.
Yes.
We're seeing not just the retail investors, we're seeing institutions, corporations, we're seeing governments coming into Bitcoin. This is a no-brainer. If you don't have some allocation, consider learning and allocating some into this. And if you want to see more content on crypto, make sure you subscribe. Every week we come to you with a lot of crypto updates like this. And even if you want one-on-one sessions with us, you can always reach out to Isaac or you can reach out to me and we can have those conversations. But where do I see the market going this week? Truly, that's $1 million question.
Yeah.
Yet, I do expect that the market will continue to remain bullish. Am I going to see some volatility? Yes, we're going to see volatility in 2025. It's a no-brainer. We never can tell what can happen. Maybe there can be a black swan event. There could be just a news and the market just goes down. Nobody expected DeepStick on Monday.
Yes.
Nobody saw that coming. And we saw NVIDIA going 17% in just one single day. But even
It
that,
was spooked, like you like to say. The
yeah,
market has a funny way of spooking itself.
yes, the market has a way of just surprising us, but I'm a naturally optimistic person. I so much believe that the stock and the crypto market, these are vehicles that we use to build wealth over time. If you're just a student of the market, you can see that this is a very important tool to just put your money into and let the market just do its thing for you. So again, I remain optimistic about the market. I remain very bullish. And if the market gives me any buying opportunity, and gives us another NVIDIA and DeepSeek moment again with a 17-20% drop, I'm going to be buying. Even if I know that this might drop, I'm just going to buy and with the hope that in the next 5-10 years, I'll be happy that I bought at this price. So that's my take on the market for the following week. And I truly hope that the market always be in our favor.
That's lovely. And I also see, the market having a lot of volatility, but I'm a little bit cautious with the possibility of the tariffs, the Trump tariffs. So I am a little bit, conservative in my approach. I have a bit of cash in my portfolio, but I'm trading the volatility through the volatility ETFs. And just now I was kind of like making a bit of money from this volatility.
Every day, you're making money every day, coach.
It's not that easy, but I am
Monday through Friday.
gradually, seeing some of my strategies working. Now, we always want to say, may the markets be on your favor, but trade and invest wisely and make sure you are knowledgeable in the things that you are putting your money in. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or my beloved coach here so that we can have a tete-a-tete and build wealth together. Let's keep this conversation going. Like, share, subscribe so that this video will go viral. Bye-bye and see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in.